Hi, I'm Randy Horton from Orthogonal here with MedTech Spotlight Live. We're at the San Diego Convention Center for AdvaMed's MedTech Conference. You can't make it to every conference, and you certainly can't meet every interesting person every conference. So what we try and do with MedTech Spotlight Live is curate a set of conversations with people who have really interesting things to share with you at home, or in your case, probably your home office today. So we're here today with Dr. Ricky Bloomfield, Chief Medical Officer for Oura.
Yeah.
Now,
Nice to
welcome.
meet you. Yeah, very good to see you.
First tell us about you, your background. How does somebody end up Chief Medical Officer for a fitness ring?
Yeah, so my background, so I'm a physician, internal medicine and pediatrics. And I've been at Oura about 7 months, but prior to that, I was at Apple for 8.5 years, leading the clinical and health informatics work on the health software team there. So I oversaw our efforts around helping users of the health app get access to their clinical data. And I have worked for many years in the health interoperability and the health data space. And I was at Apple when we released a number of regulated features for Apple Watch as well. And I've also worked clinically as a pediatric hospitalist for a number of years.
And for those who don't know, but that's maybe a small number, tell us a little bit about Oura.
Oura is a company that was actually founded in Finland over a decade ago and make one product, which is a smart ring. And Oura was founded with the idea that you need to have a focus on holistic health and wellness. And there was recognition that many of the fitness trackers at that time, they did a good job counting steps, but they didn't do much beyond that. And sleep is such a foundational part of everything we do, is that Oura wanted to create a device that could track sleep very accurately. And that meant it had to be something that was convenient and easy to wear at night, and also had a battery that would last long enough to be able to last at night. And so they came up with the ring form factor because it checked all those boxes. It wasn't another digital mouth to feed with a screen that got in your way, and the battery lasts up to a week. It really pushed the idea that sleep is an important thing to measure. And from there, the company expanded into many other things. Of course, there's a PPG sensor on here, accelerometer, temperature, and blood oxygen sensor as well. So it can measure a number of things today that really has broadened, I think, the appeal for a device that is small enough to fit on your finger.
So what pulled you away from Apple? What did you see at Oura that you thought was interesting?
First, I have to say that I love my time at Apple. It's an amazing team, and I have so much respect for that team that has really done a number of firsts, especially in the regulated consumer device space, releasing the first AFib feature there, which I think really opened the doors for many other companies. But when I was exploring this opportunity, what became obvious to me is that it's not just about wellness, it's also about how can we use these devices for clinical care. And in order to do that, you need a number of things. Number one, you need to have an approach that is cross-platform. So not just iOS, but also Android. Because if you're going to meet with a health system or a payer, you need to meet them where they are. You need their patients and their beneficiaries to be able to use a product no matter which platform they have. So that was, I think, one of the most interesting things. Also, when I started exploring the ring form factor, so I actually got an Oura ring when I was considering this. I hadn't used one before. 6 weeks after I got the ring, I got a notification, actually in the Apple Health app of all places, that there had been a change in my sleep trend. And it told me that I was actually sleeping 45 minutes more per night. More. And the only thing that had changed 6 weeks previous was that I got the ring. And so it made me realize that there was something about the overall experience that for me was even more engaging. I've been wearing Apple Watch since literally day one. I still have it on today, and it's useful for a number of things. But from a behavior change and engagement standpoint, Oura was doing something really special. So that was, I think, the second one. But then also, I looked at the ring form factor, and this is something that is very easy to wear. It's very easy to wear at night. And the reason that's important isn't just because you want to, if you want to measure these things, you want a good foundation of engagement. And the more someone wears a device, obviously, the more that you can have an impact on their behavior. But because of the battery life and because of the form factor, people actually wear it at night. And at night, you get the best quality signal because you don't have motion artifact. And of course, because this lasts up to a week on a charge, every time you take a device off, it's an opportunity to not put it back on again.
Right.
So that helps as well. But then also in terms of accuracy, PPG sensors generally work by measuring capillary blood flow, certainly on the back of your wrist. That's actually not the best place to measure a PPG signal. It's just the most convenient for a watch. So on your finger, you actually have two what are called digital arteries that run along the bottom of your finger that are just millimeters away from these sensors. So we can actually pick up arterial flow in addition to just capillary flow. So all these things together, for me, made it obvious that we have an opportunity to do really high quality sensing at scale. And that's important not just for wellness, but also for ongoing chronic disease, prevention, detection, all these things that we really want to do.
Interesting. I do have to ask, just as an aside, when you were in a residency in pediatrics, did you ever think you'd spend so much time thinking about the finger?
That is a great question. No, I did not. And I think it just goes to show that no matter where we're at in our career, I did my residency in internal medicine and pediatrics. So we did a lot of work in the ICU as well. And there are obviously blood oxygen sensors that go on the finger, but didn't think too much of it. They also have them that go on the earlobe, things like that. But for me, I think it's just a lesson in how we need to be flexible and open-minded no matter where we are about where things are going to go. And certainly when I was in residency, we didn't have smartwatches and things like that. I remember starting to use the Pebble watch. If you remember that one, it had an e-ink screen and it did have an accelerometer. I used it to track my swimming before Apple Watch existed. And so we've seen these technologies progress, continue to get smaller, last longer. And I think that's going to be the trajectory. This technology is going to continue to improve. There's so much innovation happening in this space right now that it's going to be an exciting decade.
Interesting. Okay. One of the interesting things about digital eating the medical device is 10 years ago, if you had said to somebody, who makes medical devices, the answer would have been a medical device manufacturer. Duh. Are you guys a medical device manufacturer? Are you a consumer tech company that dabbles in med tech? Or how do you think about that?
I would definitely call ourselves a consumer tech company. But I think the definition of a consumer tech company is broadening in terms of what that means. The reason I would go with consumer tech company is because our primary customer at the end of the day is going to be the consumer that puts the device on. And we have to make an experience that is engaging for everyone because they are investing in us. They are purchasing this piece of hardware. They want it to continue to be supported over time. And so we have to create that engaging experience for the individual. Having said that, it's also really important for us to have an enterprise business where we can help insurers and health systems. Our largest customer today is actually the Department of War, and we have over 100 deals with them just in the last year. And the reason that happens is because there was actually, so we did a lot of work with them during COVID, but also I think in 2017, there was a collision of 2 Navy vessels and a number of sailors died. That was tracked down to fatigue. And so the Navy and the Air Force and other branches of the military are very interested in understanding troop readiness. And they found that the ring is a great way to measure that. They don't want troops to be fatigued. They want them to be ready to go when they're called up. And so because of that, they see a lot of opportunity. So while it is a consumer device, there are definitely enterprise use cases. But at the end of the day, it's a very personal and intimate device. It has to motivate you to make a change in order for it to work.
So one of the interesting things that is you talk about that is at the core, your product is a ring, right? It's a smart ring.
Yeah.
But I'm guessing it sounds like a large part of your day is spent thinking not about the ring, but about the multiple ecosystems the ring lives in. It's part of somebody's daily consumer flow of all your apps. And you said you got alerted in Apple Health about something that your ring found.
Yep.
You're in all these enterprise and clinical data flows, both clinical or organizational. I would assume your data center for DoD data may not be your standard data center. Just taking a wild guess. And then you have the larger the health systems that you're doing for clinical trial systems. How much of your day do you spend really thinking about the ring, and how much do you spend thinking about the world the ring lives in, or the worlds the ring lives in?
Yeah, it's actually probably a pretty even split. When Oura decided to hire a chief medical officer, there were a few different goals they wanted to accomplish. And I often say that the primary goal of a chief medical officer should be to build trust and credibility. That's why I'm at Oura. And so part of that is actually on the product side. I've started to hire clinicians. We now have 4 physicians at Oura. And the goal is to help advise on our product development to make sure we're building things that are trustworthy, that make sense, that can be understood and interpreted by anyone who wears the device. That's actually a really important part of what I do. But also, we're building a team around clinical outcomes research. So we want to make sure that what the ring does can be measured and that we actually can prove that it improves health outcomes, that we can prove that it can reduce cost overall. And of course, those are things that are very important, not just to our members, but also to our partners, such as Essence, which is a Medicare Advantage plan in the Midwest, and other provider partners that we have. And so these 2 areas, both consumer and sort of these ecosystems that you mentioned, are very much intertwined. And showing success and accuracy and validation in one certainly helps the other.
Got it. Got it. And how do you find, how do I phrase this? Is it weird to be doing some things that are consumer grade and consumer regulated and some things that are clinical grade and clinical regulated and some things that are actually medical device grade and medical device regulated? Is that a complex world to navigate?
It definitely requires some context switching when you're thinking about these. And so as an example, we released a feature about a year ago called Symptom Radar. And Symptom Radar was actually a feature that came out of around the COVID time, where there were a number of NBA basketball players that wore the ring. They were very interested in knowing if they could detect COVID early so that they could quarantine the players that might be sick, so the other players could keep doing what they love and playing basketball and entertaining us. And so at the same time, there was this study called TempPredict, where we actually found that the ring could detect symptoms of COVID, signs of COVID, 2.75 days earlier than your COVID test could. And so what that taught us is that there's this world and that the ring can detect things. And so we released this feature, Symptom Radar. It is not an FDA cleared 510K feature. We're not making claims that it can detect a specific condition or disease. But what we are doing is helping people understand when their baseline set of vital signs, those are deviating from their norm. So that's basically all we're telling them. However, we found that, of course, it does do a very good job helping someone know. They'll get a notification that says either minor signs of illness or major signs. And when they get that, they know that they might feel okay right now, but they can watch themselves. And then, of course, 2 or 3 days later, they'll be on the sofa surrounded by Kleenex because they actually do have this. And we've seen this time and time again. And that part was not very surprising to us, that it could detect upper respiratory infections. What has been surprising is that we've now had multiple examples where it has detected cancer before someone had a diagnosis. So they may have felt off and they were getting the major signs notification within their app. And what it did was it actually motivated them to go to their doctor sooner. And so ultimately, they probably would have ended up with the same diagnosis. But for something like cancer, obviously,
Sooner the better.
Time matters.
Right.
And so we don't make any claims that this device can detect cancer. But we know that it is very good at detecting deviations from your baseline set of vitals that you just can't really feel yourself yet.
Right.
And so when we look at this, we do have a class 1 device in our fertile window, which is also really important. And then we're also looking at many other software as a medical device class 2 features. And we do have to approach these differently because the type of claims you can make with a class 1 or an unregulated device are very different than the claims you can make with class 2. But that's a challenge we are happy to take on. We think it's really important to consider how we can have the biggest impact. Sometimes you can have the biggest impact with a class 2 feature. Sometimes you can have a bigger impact with an unregulated feature. But for us, the level of science and validation and accuracy of the features, no matter how we release it, doesn't change.
Got it. maybe let's close with this question. You guys got a massive investment from Dexcom recently. That was really interesting, seeing a major medical device manufacturer putting a big investment in what was a consumer wellness technology. And I read that and I thought, oh, wow, that's got all kind of interesting possibilities. I wonder what they are. So what kind of things are you doing with Dexcom right now? Where are the synergies there?
Yes. Earlier this year, we announced this partnership with Dexcom. And so today, users of the Oura Ring can purchase the Stelo glucose biosensor, a CGM device, directly from the Oura website when they purchase their ring. And then they can use that Stelo device to get glucose every 5 minutes, real time, to their device on an ongoing basis. And so the way we use that is we actually built a feature within the app so you can see how the glucose is impacted by your meals, for example. So you can actually take a picture of your meals today. It blows me away how accurate it is. It'll tell you everything that's there. We intentionally designed the feature to not count calories. We designed it to be more qualitative in terms of how much protein, how much sugar, how many carbohydrates, things like that. So you can have a general sense for how healthy is the food, because calorie counting is, number one, it's very hard to do using pictures because there are some things that are impossible. Like, how much butter do those mashed potatoes have in it? No idea. It's just not really possible to do that. But also, because when you get too focused on counting calories, you tend to go in a wrong direction, and you want to focus on how healthy the food is. Portion size is really important. And so what this partnership with Dexcom does is allow you to see the impact of what you do, your behavior, on glucose. And so I actually started wearing the Stelo device on the first day that we actually were going on a cruise earlier this year. And as you can imagine, the type of food you eat on the cruise and the timing of that food is very different than it was at home. We had dinner, I think, at 8:30 or 8:45 every evening, and normally I eat at 5 or 5:30. And even though I'm a clinician, this is not something we learned in medical school in terms of how food timing impacts your glucose response. And it blew me away what I saw. Like, when I had a late meal, the glucose was so much higher, and it stayed higher even when I went to sleep, which then impacted your heart rate, because you had a higher heart rate because you're still digesting, which had an impact on your deep sleep. So all of these things are connections that I would not have been able to make without this data. And we're seeing that time and time again, that when we shine a spotlight on information, that's what really motivates people to change their behavior. And at the end of the day, that's the hardest thing to do, is really change behavior. And I think we're on our way to really seeing more and more of that.
And that's really the remarkable part, of the really interesting part for me about Oura getting involved in this world is you guys have what so many people in digital health have tried to do, which is actually get sustained patient engagement that moves behavior. There's been countless digital health solutions in medtech and without that were great ideas and moved the needle not at all.
Yeah.
Or had no users after 2 weeks.
Yeah, that's exactly right. We've seen people wear the ring 23.5 hours per day on average, so almost always, and they open the app 3.2 times per day. That blows me away, that there's that level of engagement. And I feel like that also means that we have a lot of responsibility to use that engagement, not just to generate more engagement, but to really change behavior. And so it's a balance between how much do you ask someone to do and how much do you back off or tell them that they need to back off in order to find that balance. And so I think we're always trying to find ways to do that better, but so far it seems to be working pretty well.
That's terrific. What are you talking about here? What are you looking to get out of your day at the conference?
So I'm on a panel later today talking about wearable technologies and how that's related to the MedTech conference overall. There are a number of wearable technologies now that are moving towards the software as a medical device feature set. And so we're really excited to really dig into that more, some of the challenges that are there. And I'm excited to be at a conference like this to see the other innovators and what is new, what is around the corner. I think it's really important for us to not just keep our heads down and focused on our narrow slice of the world, but to really have a broad perspective and see what other opportunities there are out there in the medtech space.
Very good. Very good. You actually want people to come up to you with ideas here.
There you go. Exactly. No, I'm always looking for opportunities to learn.
Excellent. Excellent. Thanks for coming out and thanks
Thanks,
for,
Randy.
for talking to us.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Have a good conference.
All right. Thank you.